Well, and so like a lot of people are touching on like, obviously the storm stuff that happened and the coverage and the news and how to be prepared and all that kind of stuff. And you try to be prepared as best you can. But like really, I want to talk and you're going to see all the stuff, the bad stuff that's happened, but like there's really good stuff happening too behind the scenes. And that's why Lisa's here because, she got involved or started, there's a lot of people out there that are helping, big companies that are helping, lineman companies are coming from all over the states to help get everybody back up and running. But there are people on the ground, individual people and groups that are trying their best to help all these individuals that have so much damage and have had their lives like wiped away by Hurricane Ian. So Lisa, how did you get started? Like I said, it
Um,
was my first hurricane. I didn't know what to do. I don't know enough people down here. And like Carrie is saying, I'm from Michigan, and a lot of people don't understand really until you go through it.
yeah, and even the pictures don't do it justice. It's like you see it on TV or you hear about it on the radio, but then when you're actually there, it really does look like a bomb went off. Someone had described it as taking a giant wrecking ball the size of a building and then just slamming it down multiple times in the middle of Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel. And that's exactly what it looks like. Uh, what was so devastating about the storm not only was how strong it was, but the fact that they didn't know where it was going up until about 2 hours before it hit. And even then, they were still saying Sarasota, Sarasota. And it ended up going further south to Sanibel, Matlacha, Pine Island, Punta Gorda. It actually almost hit directly where Charlie had hit. And
Charlie.
Charlie was another storm. I want to say it was early 2004 or something
That's the one
like
I was
that.
thinking of. That was
Yeah.
really
But
bad.
Charlie it was strong, but Charlie was very small. Charlie could fit into the eye of this storm.
Wow.
This storm was over, I want to say it was over 500 miles, and when Irma hit in 2017, it was 400 miles wide. So this was insane. This was only 1 or 2 miles per hour in wind speed away from a 5.
Yeah.
So it was quite devastating. But how I got started on this was from seeing all the pictures, and I know a lot of people feel this way. With you just start crying, and it's a lot to do with like survivor's guilt, where you lucked out, and that makes you feel guilty for lucking out, because we do live in Naples and we are more inland, specifically where we are. But it's just sad because you're looking at these pictures, these places. I mean, you go there on vacation, you might have some company in town and you go eat dinner at the Lani Kai, and they're just completely destroyed. First floor or the whole thing. Or so my husband is a first responder, and he gets an insight to things, and he sees things and he hears about things that the media was not covering, and they're still not covering. And so anyway, so my husband was talking to me about these things, and as he's telling you about how people try to flee their homes, and instead their cars got swept away and died inside their cars. And it's not just one, it's not two, it's tens, it's dozens and dozens. The fact that these bodies were they're still washing up onto the shore. That's why the beaches are closed. uh, it's sad. It's very sad. And so it makes you cry. It touches something deep inside that you have to do something. And so I got tired of crying. And I said, well, I have 3 small kids. So I'm like, I can't just go out and volunteer. We don't have tons of money. Like, I can't just buy pallets of whatever. So, but the nice thing about Naples is we come from a very wealthy town. One of the wealthiest in the state, for Collier County. So if we could just get a message out there, like, hey, if you want to help. And so that's another thing. Some people don't even know where to start. They're just like, I don't even know where to begin. So where I began was my husband was visiting some FPL grounds nearby, and the the lineman, something messed up in communication for whatever that reason, something messed up. It was, they didn't have a place to sleep, a place to eat. So my husband's like, well, let's see what we can do. So he comes home and he talks to me about this. And we're not talking like just 10 guys. It was thousands of guys are at these camps. And my husband was telling me about it. He's like, you know, can you believe this? I'm like, that's pretty terrible. How they expect them to go help others when they're not even being fed. So I put out on some of the Facebook groups, hey, this is what we need. We need food, we need laundry, we need this, we need that. And I think within 20 minutes, I had 100 comments. So the only problem with that was everybody wanted to know specifically what they wanted. And I'm like, I don't know. so
Right.
I got in my car and I drove over there, and I drove over there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There weren't many of the men there because they're actually working 12 to 18-hour days, but there was some stragglers there that were coming back for supplies. And I just started asking him, I said, you have the ear of 46,000 women, moms specifically. What do you need in order to do the best you can do with your job? And so it was so funny because the requests were just like, you know, deodorant, some good shampoo. And by the time I had gone over there, let me add this, by the time I had gone over there, FPL had came through with sleeping arrangements, with food, and what else? Some of the necessities. They even got a giant food tent up. So they wanted good toilet paper, specifically one where they don't have to feel their own ass when they wipe.
Right.
You need to stop and go away right now.
That's okay.
I've got kids.
Yeah, that's what this is all about too. Yeah, it's chaos.
And then they wanted Gatorade. They wanted things because they had only water, and they were walking all the way to the gas station, which I want to say is probably like maybe half a mile. So they were walking all the way to the gas station, and every night they buy all the beer, they buy all the Gatorades, they buy all the chips. They would clean the store out with whatever they had. So I started putting out feelers on like all these local community sites, and eventually we got pallets of stuff donated. We got a pallet of Gatorade donated. We had a pallet of energy drinks, but it got dropped off at a different FPL site, but that's okay.
It went somewhere good, right?
Yeah, it still went to you know, where we needed to go. And then we got tons of bougie toilet paper. And then we actually had a church. It was Ocean Church. Came with a truckload, an actual truckload of blessing bags filled with candy bars, filled with toilet paper, filled with like good deodorant, shampoo, and all that stuff. And so they said, whatever you need, just let us know. And then we had the Cal Ripken Foundation contact us and said, what do you need? And then I had the county commissioner contact me and say, what do you need? And so once again, you just put those feelers out, and people start coming out like, okay, what can we do?
Yeah.
And even just, you know, putting on like your community page, like, you know, the housing development that I live in, just putting out there. If you make it obtainable, people are more likely to help. So like, hey, I can come to your house and get it. Or if you have no money, you want to maybe donate your time breaking down boxes, just come over to my house and break down some boxes, because we have a whole bunch of them. So that's what started. It started with the FPL guys, and then the need went a little further, and they started to message me about laundry. Like I said, there was thousands and thousands of men stationed just behind my house, and there was a 4 to 5 day turnaround on laundry. And so my FPL contact, he doesn't work for FPL, he's a contractor with them, but he contacted me. He said, were you still serious about like the laundry? And I'm like, I can make it happen. I'll make it happen. I don't know how, but I will make it happen. And I just, once again, went to those community pages, just any and all that were close by, and said, hey, I've got some men that need their laundry done. Who's willing to do it? And in about, I want to say it was like 12 hours, we had 130 women join the linemen laundry ladies. So it was crazy. So we
I
learned that
love
you
it.
can't, we learned very quickly, you can't use bleach, fabric softener, or dryer sheets because it could set them on fire. We don't want to set any men on fire. So,
No.
so there was
Yeah.
very
Whoa.
strict things that we had to adhere. But so then that started that. So we had done dozens and dozens of laundry. Most of the linemen now are leaving Naples, and they're moving up to the harder hit areas, Fort Myers and Lee, Charlotte County. So from there, I got in contact with someone else. It was kind of like a snarky comment, and I was prepared to get very defensive, but then it actually turned out to be a blessing because we were able to connect with this person. So I was on one of those mom sites, and I know women can be very snarky, but she was like, instead of donating to the linemen, you should be donating to Charlotte County. And I said, well, when you want to start your own donation center, I'll be happy to support you. And
Right.
she said, well, we're donating to Punta Gorda, Pine Island, Matlacha, like where the eye of the storm hit. So I was like, okay. So then I messaged her privately and I said, what do you need? And then that opened up a whole nother adventure.
Really?
Yeah. So we have donated, I wish I could like tell you how much it weighed because it would sound so impressive, but so we've donated, I can tell you, I've filled my full-size SUV to the top, all the way to the top, can't see out the windows, 8 times, and dropped
Whoa.
it off to her. And their story, so they're working with 4 churches. The churches in the community have come together, and it's quite an interesting story. You could not, up until just a few days ago, like I want to say not even a week ago, maybe it was a week ago, you could not get to the islands unless you had a boat. So these people were stranded. They had no help. If you had broken bones, too bad, can't help you.
Whoa.
If they were starving, can't do anything about it. There was no rescue. There was nothing. I mean, everything was decimated. It was flattened, but these people couldn't get off the island. And even if they wanted to, they didn't want to, because everything that they had ever owned or loved or cared about was there. And if they left, where would they go? And that was kind of, they had elderly family that was with them. They had pets, that shelters don't take pets. So it was a really hard decision. So this group that I connected with, they decided, and here's just a little snippet, but federal aid has red tape to go through. They have hoops to jump through. They can't just show up whenever they want.
Yeah.
So local organizations like churches and whatnot, they don't have to go through that. So they decided, they got some of their churchgoers and decided, hey, who's got a boat? They look, and we're not talking big boats, we're talking fishing boats, even like the aluminum boats.
Oh,
And
wow. Yeah.
they loaded up everything that they could fit without the boat sinking, and they took it from Naples all the way to Sanibel and Pine Island.
Wow.
And then just started dropping stuff off, so at least these people have food, or just to survive, water.
Right.
And then, yeah, so, and then up until a few days ago, they got a bridge going on Pine Island, and they're still not connecting all of them quite yet. And FEMA, just up until I want to say 2 days ago, told them that they have to leave, and even offered them money to stay at a hotel or something, because these people just refuse to leave everything that they've ever owned. So it's sad. It is sad, but we're doing the best we can to at least make things slightly better.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where we're at now. And then from that, the Phoenix School in Naples, they're in East Naples. And this is what I feel like the news isn't covering, is that parts of Naples got hit pretty hard. Yes, there's the parts that are close by the beach with the mansions on them, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about next to the mansions, where you have mobile homes, lower income housing, the older parts of Naples over by Shadowlawn, those were underwater by a few feet. And there's a school over there that helps. It's an alternative school for kids who like might get in trouble, and all their surrounding families that they were trying to help. So actually, they just came and took another carload to help out with that community needs. And it's everything. They need everything. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's things we don't normally think of. Like, I mean, maxi pads, like
Right.
they,
Tampons.
it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like life still goes on when your world is in shambles. Like, baby diapers and wipes, and there's no refrigeration. Uh, a lot of these places, especially in the Charlotte County and in Lee County, there's none. So you can't just be like, oh, here, let me hand you some groceries. No, that doesn't work. Where are they going to put them? So
Right.
we've been trying to get things like powdered milk, because that you don't necessarily need refrigeration for.
Right.
And now we're trying to get small appliances, because we got a couple generators donated. I know people have been donating generators. Mike's weather page just went over there with a truckload of generators and dropped some off, which is great. But
Wow.
so now they need other things, because people are like, well, here's rice, here's canned goods. Okay. They do want to be able to heat some of this stuff up, especially to make rice or pasta. So they need things like hot plates, toasters, little appliances that don't take up too much ampage and might trip your generator.
Right.
So that's where we're at now. So our relief effort has changed. Water has been less of a need. We've had so much water donated. Water's been slightly less of a need. Now the need is going into replenishing these people's homes. Sheets
Yeah.
were a big request. Pillows. Um,
Towels, probably.
towels was not towels always go the fastest, but yes, towels. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at now. And the sad thing is, like I mentioned in the beginning, you see it on TV, but being there is just a completely different animal. At exactly the 1 week mark, our donations had slowed down. Day one, I started this. I want to say like 60 cars show up at my house dropping stuff off. It was crazy. I would say like the first 3 days that it was like a nice steady stream. And at the 1 week mark, I had 4 people drop off.
Yeah.
And the next day I had 0. Now we do have an Amazon wish list, which is going out to people beyond Florida, because obviously not everyone can just come and drop off. And
Right.
the Amazon wish list is nice because it ships directly to my house. So we then take that and we disperse as needed. We are still dropping off by boat. We are still in St. James City was our next endeavor, and that is another hard hit community that's right next to Sanibel and Cape Coral. But so that's another thing. But the wish list has been extremely helpful. Like I said, if anyone's looking to help donate, we can always give you a link or something to that.
Yes.
I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. We can just directly probably put it right in the show notes. Or they could even go on I could email it to whoever's interested. It's awesome that you did all this. And I have to tell you, like, I kind of have like survivor's guilt a little bit, because it's like you go through it and then, you go 10 miles in, 12 miles in, you start to see a little bit of damage, but then like you get to the coast and it's just like a completely different story. And then intermittently there's different places and areas that are hit harder than others. And so, the news doesn't really show the full story at all. And so it's crazy. And it's like, and it's like funny because like I went to donate to your Amazon list, right? And I had stuff shipped to you. And it's like little bits add up to like a bigger donation, right? And so it's like, even though you feel like, oh, I can only spend $20 or I can only spend $50 or whatever, it's still that little amount is going to help somebody, even, and then it adds up. So you don't have to send
and we have items as cheap as just a couple bucks, like a bottle of shampoo.
Yeah.
These
Kleenex.
it's either dig through your house for items you need. And when I say dig through your house, meaning your house is a pile of rubble on the ground, or, just go find a donation center and get it. Like, it's just, they need everything. They need
Yeah.
everything that fills a house. And then when you think about that, if you've ever packed your house up, it's a lot.
Well, and it's interesting though, because you mentioned this in the beginning too, that like we really weren't sure what was going to happen. You know, they were saying north of us, north of us, north of us, or, you know, and then, you know, you can't control Mother Nature, and you can, with all the technology, you can only predict so much, you know, and everything kind of happened, like you said, and late in the game. So even those that needed to evacuate, they didn't really have enough time. And then you add in that social, you add in that emotional side to it. I had a friend of mine on Marco Island. She didn't know that until like 11 o'clock on Tuesday night to that they were, you know, they were in the zone to evacuate. And that's south of Naples, you know, and she's like, but it's such an emotional decision, because, you know, if you leave, you're not coming back to anything. And like, what do you pack and what do you take with you? And it's just, it's really hard, you know, and
You
what
don't
about
know,
your pets? And
you don't know
yeah,
when you
Yeah.
come back. That was another thing. Because my husband is a first responder, he has to stay. And I have 3 small kids. And I'm thinking like, okay, if I leave and something happens to him, how do I get back? And then everyone's like, well, why don't you just leave? Well, that's a whole nother ball game. If you've ever seen the news about evacuations, it is bumper to bumper and there is no gas. The gas is gone. Everybody has the gas. So if your car dies on the road, you are now SOL. I mean, if you can make it as, and we're talking like, it's not just, oh, go 20 miles and get gas. No, no, no. It's hundreds of miles of bumper to bumper. And if you die, if your car dies and you need gas, what are you going to do now? Now you have a car on the side of the road. There's a storm coming. What are you going to do? Like
yeah.
you're,
With dogs and kids and your whole whatever you could pack into it is gone. Then you're walking away from a car that's gone. So it's like a whole
yep.
nother ball game.
Mm-mm.
And one of my girlfriend was telling me that her church here in you know, in Southwest Florida has you know, they went and donated and fed a community of mobile home, like elderly people that lost everything for like a whole day. She's like, but that was one day, a few meals. Like they're still without homes, right? They're still without everything. So the donations need to still be coming in, because like you said, their lives are gone. Like there's nothing left in some of these communities.
Well, I was talking to the FPL guys and they said that many have been contracted here until, here meaning Southwest Florida, until February 2023.
Wow.
That's a long time. That's a long time these people are going to, and think about what FPL does. We're talking power, you know, air conditioning, lights, everything. So some of these people are going to be without all of that until February of 2023. That's, I mean, and just to give people an idea, when it, you know, a generator can run, I'm trying to think. So we had those 3-gallon red gas cans.
Right.
And it took 6, I believe 5 or 6 to run 24 hours.
Yeah.
So gas is not cheap right now. It's expensive, but sure, if they have a generator, great, they can have power for part of the day. But now you run into another problem, they need gas.
Yeah.
So, and they don't have jobs right now because their businesses are destroyed. Hospitality industry is gone and it's not coming back for a while. Especially there's a lot of northerners that are met with quite a bit of hostility because they're asking questions like, oh, how's the beach look now? And Floridians are attacking. They're like,
Really.
leave. Yeah, it's really sad because it's, I mean, I understand like this was your vacation spot. I understand that, but these were people's homes that lived full time. And so the beaches are not safe. They are finding glass. They're fine anything. I mean, picture an earthquake. That's what these places look like. And then picture taking that earthquake and throwing it in the ocean.
Yeah. Right.
All the debris and it's coming back up and it's washing back up. So they are going to be closed for months, which is another problem because all these people with their jobs, Southwest Florida runs on tourism. We get billions of dollars during tourist season, and tourist season is right now. It starts in October. It runs about 4 to 6 months. So
Yeah.
it's gone. It's going to be gone. So that's, you know, that's a whole nother problem that these people are starting to have. Their cars flooded. So even if they had a job, they can't get to it.
Right. Right.
Car.
Yeah. I know my girlfriend on Marco Island had said that, they decided not to evacuate. And then by the time that they were even thinking about it, they couldn't. So they had to move their cars all the way up to their front door. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden the canal started flooding and it was like 3 feet of water. And they were lucky that the house that they rented set up just a little bit higher, but the house behind them, it flooded 3 feet in. And, they were watching like things just being floating down the road. I know Marco's a little bit different. She said that they were hoping to get things back up and running, for tourist season. It's going to be a little delayed, but I mean, I don't know how any of that's gonna happen, but, I'm hopefully it does. But you're right. I mean, I saw pictures of a place that my husband, I call him the man babe. We go to eat dinner when we can escape my kids, and get a babysitter and go out, which has been for a long time. But we would go to a restaurant right on the coast. And it's like an old hotel that's been around forever. And the whole thing, and my girlfriend who lives in Marco Island, her husband actually is a bartender there. He's also a gym teacher, but he also works on a couple days a week. That's gone. Like the whole thing, the whole first floor of the restaurant was just completely annihilated. Like it didn't even exist, so, and that's just like one restaurant,
Yeah.
there's like, yeah. And I can't imagine. I feel very lucky where I live that we are just enough inland, and that we're close to a sheltering school and we're
Mhm.
on the same grid as like a water treatment plant and also like near a fire station where, my experience with this storm was entirely different than if you drove in 10, 15, 20 miles towards the
Mhm.
coast up and down. And I do feel like I have a little bit of survivor's guilt, but I know now that I will never not be prepared. I will never not be serious about a hurricane. Even if the sun is shining and the birds are chirping, like I will
Because you
take it
never know.
seriously. You
Yeah.
never
And
know.
that's what happened with Charlie. It was, once again, it was supposed to hit the Tampa area. And I was a freshman in Tampa at USF. And yeah, it was supposed to hit Tampa. And then at the last second, it turned, and it turned very sharp, and it hit Port Charlotte. And they just weren't expecting it, because being in the eye of the storm and being 40 miles outside of the storm, 60 miles outside of the storm are two very different scenarios.
Mhm.
Whereas, like with this storm with Ian, we were um, inland. Naples was probably, I want to say it was like 30 miles from the eye of the storm. That's not that far.
No.
But the coast saw like the really bad feeder bands, whereas we were on kind of like the drier side of it. But I mean, we're talking 30 miles. That's it.
Yeah.
30 miles, and we would have saw devastation compared to Port Charlotte. So
Yeah.
it doesn't take much. They don't ever know exactly where it's going.
Yeah.
Um, it it's mind-boggling with all modern technology, but they don't. I mean, for Pete's sakes, the 4 or 5 days before, they had it going all the way in the Panhandle and hitting like Alabama,
Right.
Panhandle, and it went
Yeah.
all the way back down to South Florida.
Right. Yeah, I know. And it's weird because like I've been down in Florida. You've lived here your whole life. You were born and raised. And like I've been here for going on 5 years. And I remember the first year that I came down here, it was like I spent like a lot of money getting prepared for hurricanes because I just didn't know. And then with each year, the preparedness and the emergency feeling kind of wanes a little bit, and you let your guard down a little bit. And I think that a lesson that I learned, and probably a lot of different people, or not like a lesson, but like just, like a life experience, that you're right. You cannot control weather, even with technology, even with all the, forecasting ahead of time. You never know what a hurricane's going to do or what weather's going to do. It could just veer off to the right and go 30 miles south and hit, where nobody was where you were least expecting it. So um, but you're right. It's like such an emotional decision to whether or not you want to evacuate. I told my husband, I was like, I don't think I'd ever want to evacuate because I don't think I'd ever want to be stuck on a side of a road in a car with 3 kids and 2 dogs and have my gas run out. That sounds
Yeah.
worse.
And
But
it's
also,
not even the gas. When Irma hit, Irma was like the only storm I feel like they were sure about 4 days before. And that's because of the jet stream, that's because of the wind currents, but it kept going between uh, Marco Island, Miami, Marco Island, Miami. And one day it flip flopped 4 times. And then about, I want to say it was 5 o'clock, because my husband's getting ready to go to work. It was 5 o'clock. All of a sudden, it did a double on Naples or Marco Island. So it was like Marco, Miami, Marco, Miami, Marco, Marco, Marco. And I'm like, uh-oh, they're not moving it. And they said, all right, guys, we're pretty sure this is what's going to happen. They narrowed the cone. And I looked at my husband and they were talking about category 5. And I had a 10-month-old and I had a 10-month-old and a 3-year-old. And I said, I'm out. We were in a house that was 60 years old. And I'm thinking like, it's not up to hurricane standards.
Right.
So I went online, I went to Delta, I went to go hit submit, and the whole entire Delta web page crashed. And I realized I'm not going anywhere. And then sure enough, they reporting on the news that Expedia had crashed, Delta crashed, all of them crashed because of the amount of traffic that was trying to purchase a ticket to get out. And I think at that point, the overwhelming feeling of doom of, oh my gosh, we could die. This is it. We could die. And it's hard to talk about because it scares the crap out of you, especially when you've got small kids. I remember being in my house as the eye wall went over and I'm watching my front door get sucked out. And we heard the most loudest metal grinding noise. And I just kept screaming, what is that? What is that? And it was our garage door, the big garage door, not the one that goes into the house, was being sucked out. And when I realized what that was, and I'm looking at the front door, which was partly boarded up, it only had one board because we ran out of wood. Everywhere ran out of wood. So I looked at my sister and I just told her, I said, I think this is it. I think we might die. Like, this is it. And I remember texting my husband, who once again wasn't home. And I said, the front door is about to be sucked out. We're in the bathroom with the door shut and a mattress over it, but I don't know how much longer we can take.
Wow.
And after that, the cell phones all went dead and he didn't know if we were alive for 12 hours. And he came running in the house. He's like, are you okay?
Yeah, right.
But to go through something like that, it is, I wouldn't want to wish that on my worst enemy. It is, especially when you have babies, like, so to feel hopeless, like you can't leave, you can't. Now, if there was a category 5 coming my way, I would do everything I could to probably make sure my kids were safe. We do have a brand new house, which I do think makes it easier to stay because we're all up to hurricane code.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a very tough decision. But yeah, it's so, if I've got PTSD here from Irma, and this is 5 years later, and I could sit here and still cry about it. Imagine how those people are feeling, and their houses are destroyed.
Right. So that was your experience with Irma in a house that was an older house, not up to hurricane code. And now you live in a new construction with hurricane code, which is like, that's what I was trying to explain, is that like, I feel very lucky that we live in an area where there is new construction, everything's up to code, and learning how, and that we actually have a real hurricane shutters that are metal shutters. We didn't have to go out and get wood. So we are very, very, very lucky. And I did use this experience to learn how to put up the metal shutters because I had never had that experience before. I didn't. I had very nice neighbors and their husbands who helped me. And I won't name any names, but like, they were like, hey, you got to look at the numbers and you got to line them up. And then they actually physically helped me put up the first 3 windows because I had no idea what I was doing. And it was like a real snap decision. It was like, well, maybe we'll wait till Wednesday morning and kind of see where things are going. And then everything just happened really fast. It was like, nope. And so you're in the rain and you're in the wind.
Because the weather starts to deteriorate. And you need to make a choice now, and you still don't know where it's going. But it's like, okay, well, do you put forth that effort and wait in the 1.5-hour long gas line, or the 2-hour wait at the grocery store and try to snag whatever groceries you can? Yeah, you don't have a choice. You just do it. You just do it.
It was funny. I will tell you, my husband was a little bit angry with me because he is a weather geek. So he follows Mike's weather page, I think that's called. And, and so he had gotten some gas and he had filled up the cars, way ahead, when they first started, talking and forecasting about this hurricane when it actually got named. And so I'd gone to the grocery store and gotten stuff, and people were already starting to get, get a little frantic about things. So if you wait too long, there is nothing left for you to go get.
Mhm.
But I ended up taking everything out of my freezer and cooking it up because I was like, I don't know, at least it's cooked up and it's in the fridge, and then you could just
You
eat
did
it.
the right thing. That is what you do. They say to grab things in your freezer, cook it, and then you can actually go back to freezing it. Now that it's cooked, you can freeze it. And then when your power goes out, at least you have cooked meats. But in my experience, my first hurricane was Andrew. I was in second grade. So I've been through quite a few of them, but this is my experience with it, is that as soon as they move that cone, and if you're in let's say a 4 to 5 day, most people will start preparing at a 3 day, but I feel like 3 days, it's too late. It's a pandemonium. It's just crazy. So
Yes, people
I
are
usually
freaking
wait
out.
I wait for that 4 to 5 day cone. And if it's in our area, if we're in that cone, I start light. I might get the bread, the peanut butter, fill up on gas. And then once we get to, like, I try to do the stuff that I know is going to go first. And then once it goes to the 3 day, if we're still in that cone, I might fill up again on gas just to make sure I've got a full tank. And then if we're in that 3 day, that's when you go hard.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go hard, you go in the morning, because as soon as 4 o'clock hits, you're not, yeah, everything's gone. Like,
Yeah.
you got to go first thing in the morning. I know a lot of people don't have that luxury, but you know what? Get up an hour earlier if you can. Put
Yeah.
your kids in the car before you take them to school and go to the grocery store.
Right. I ended up putting bottles of water in the freezer too, so
Mhm.
that they were frozen. So that way, if we did lose power and we had to go to bottle water, that like at least we could pull them out and they could defrost a little bit and still be kind of cold, because it's so hot down here.
And you can freeze milk. Milk is a great thing
Really?
too. You can freeze a whole gallon of milk, and that's what I did. I froze my whole gallon of milk. When I went at the 5 day mark, I was like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want milk to go bad, so
Yeah.
I froze it right away, and then I stuck it in the fridge on like the 3 day mark, so that way it could start to thaw a little bit. And
Smart.
then the best part about that, when your power goes out, you take the milk and put it in the cooler, and you have a giant ice cube um,
Right.
that keeps forever, and you've got milk. And milk is pretty hard to come by when
Right.
there's a hurricane. It's hard to come by after the hurricane. Yeah, because with Irma, we were without power for 2.5 weeks, and the stores were closed 4 days before, and the stores were closed about a week after. So whatever food you have that's it. That's what you got.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. So if anybody like wants to help, we can provide the Amazon link, which I think is really cool that you had an Amazon lady help you set that up, right?
People come out of the woodwork. They really do. I had people like, hey, I'm a business major. Let me do this for you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like, I don't even know
Right.
how to do that. So yeah, sure. So she takes care of that. And like I said, we had, like, the Cal Ripken Association that was like, what do you need filled? People with
Right.
a bigger surplus and money, I guess,
And
can,
reach. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and reach. Yeah. So it's helped tremendously. And it definitely, that depression, that survivor's guilt starts to go away, some, because it's like, okay, at least I'm doing something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's what I kind of felt like too when you first put out that message on social media. I was like, okay, I can help.
Yeah.
Like now I can do a little bit. And even though it might not be a lot, like $100 here of like cooling bandanas and chapstick for the linemen. And if it doesn't get sent to the lineman, it's going to get sent to the next spot that needs it. And
Mhm.
and to know that like that there's people out there on the ground in the community that are out there helping, and every little bit helps. And there are good humans out there. Because I think
Yes.
in the last few years, we've just seen a lot of not great people and not great things happening. And, and unfortunately, sometimes it takes like this kind of big of a catastrophe, but there are good people out there that want to help, and they want to help because they want to help, not because it's for profit or any other reason than to just, if they could put their feet in their shoes and they could understand that like you just lost your entire house and all of your belongings, and you don't even have a toothbrush or toothpaste to brush your teeth,
Yeah.
let alone water and bread and milk or whatever, or even a roof over your head or a bed to sleep on or towels, you don't have any place to take a shower, to like help somebody else, it
Yeah.
feels good to help, I think.
It does. I mean, it does. I think just from having to go through storms, like with, Irma, and being without power for 2.5 weeks, it definitely gives you some perspective of what you would like to be donated, like those
Right.
cooling head rags. It got to the point where, because we had no running water with Irma as well. I know with Ian that's the same problem. Uh, the sewage backs up into the street, so that's why they say don't go walking in the water. Um, and I remember we had a pool at my old house, and we were bathing the kids in the shallow end of the pool because the deep end of the pool had a 50-year-old oak tree in there. So we were in the shallow end right on the steps, and we got like baby soap and was scrubbing down
Oh
our
my
kids,
gosh.
trying to just wash them because it had been like 4 or 5 days.
Right.
But it's all of that. I mean, going through something like that, it's like, just imagine it for a moment, like not having like shampoo or
Right? How annoyed do you get? I mean, honestly, like how annoyed do you get when like your chapstick runs out or you lose your chapstick or like,
I get
you know,
annoyed if I don't have the right conditioner. I mean,
right? Or like, you forgot to stock up on toothpaste and you ran out of toothpaste at 10 o'clock at night. I mean, just like the little tiny things, or just even having like bottled water or cold
or
water or
deodorant, yeah, or yeah,
deodorant, yeah. Underwear, towels. I mean, how my husband gets so mad when the towels aren't, when all the towels are gone in the house and I haven't washed them. And I'm like, okay, your life is not that tough. Like there's
yeah.
people that have like no place to shower and no towels left to
It,
you.
it definitely
It's
makes you
gone.
appreciate. It makes you appreciate the small things when a storm rolls through.
Yes.
100% does, because I was trying to go through of everything. Like, okay, what do I want available? What's going to keep me sane if we have power without power for weeks and weeks?
Yeah.
And I know it's silly, but a couple things that kept me sane was a fan, because when
Right.
it's 93, 94 degrees out, a fan is just like relief. Chocolate, which is funny enough. I ate all my Irma chocolate 2 days before the storm even hit, and I'll be like, remember, all the stores are closed for the next 2 weeks or 10 days or whatnot. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
so one of the things that we had that we do have right now, we're making kid blessing bags, and it's a drawstring, like the cheap drawstring bags.
Yeah.
And we're filling it because I think a lot of people lose sight that like there are children who just went through this. So we're putting coloring books, crayons, candy. We're getting non-melted like suckers and things, not anything
Right.
with
Jolly Ranchers. Yeah.
yeah, just and it's funny too, because when I was talking to my FPL contacts, I said, well, tell me something you need more of. And this was before they had left. Tell me something you need more of. And they said, you would think that by giving these men candy, I would have gave them $1 million. They just light up when you give them candy. And of course they can afford their own candy. It's just the fact that they're showing appreciation in some of these men. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's the little things when everything is falling apart around you, especially as a child, just being able to do something that children do, like color. So we're trying, we're giving them like little card games like Go Fish.
Mhm.
That's going in there. We're giving them those silly slap sticky wall things, like
Yeah.
anything, just to keep their spirits up as well. So that's what we're currently working on right now. And then we're also working on adult hygiene bags. And we're putting flashlights, we're putting extra batteries in both the kid ones and the adult ones. And then we're also working on those portable handheld fans with the little batteries on them.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, just because it's hot here. We need a cold front like now.
Yeah, I
So
know.
yeah,
I know it's like 90 something degrees, and
yeah.
that's like so, and you get so dehydrated so quickly. And pets too. Like I was just thinking like, there's a lot of pets that are, displaced with their owners, right? And then so where do they go? And like what happens with that? I don't know.
A lot of places are relaxing their rules with pets. I know that certain hotel chains, they had a 40, like a 20, no, it was a 40-pound pet limit, and they've scrapped the weight for the pet limit. So they're letting, and I think the governor also signed something into order that they kind of had to, or
Yeah.
something. I forgot, like shelters or something along those lines. So there are some places, but there are so a lot of places that aren't, and that's why a lot of these people don't want to leave. Now they're currently sleeping. A lot of tents have been donated, so they're sleeping in tents.
Yeah.
They're using buckets for bathrooms. That's
Yeah.
what the kitty litter. If you see kitty litter on our site, that is for spills. So whether it's urine or blood, or, anything in between, chemical related, where they're using the kitty litter to be able to soak it up to
Okay.
make some of these places a little more habitable, I guess.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. That reminds me, I did buy a bag of kitty litter so I could do a dry toilet just in case we lost power, with like a big garbage bag. So when the water goes down the toilet and then put kitty
Mhm.
litter in it. So that way, and
Yep.
then, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like,
Survival mode.
I was in survival mode. Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for, coming on and like talking and sharing with us and, and letting us in on a little bit of like what's really happening, like feet on the ground, like, what's happening around and people that are, still struggling, and that like just because it was like a week or two ago doesn't mean, I mean, there's kids that are still not, they're not even back to school up in the Fort Myers
Mhm.
area. There's like schools are demolished and like underwater, and like the damage is so bad that kids aren't even going back to school. So
Yeah,
it's
I
going to be a
think
while.
Lee County's expected start date is going to be, I I'm pretty sure it's Monday or Tuesday next week. But that's not all schools. That's just only the ones that were far more inland. And if they're gonna do what they did with Irma, they we had destroyed schools. They bust those kids to the working schools, so at least they can get air conditioning, a hot meal for lunch and breakfast
Yeah.
at at some point in the day.
Right. Right. Yeah, Florida's pretty good about that. Our school districts are really good about providing meals for kids, regardless of what you got going on. And so we can always provide the link for your Amazon list, and then like whatever sites you want to like, connect people with, to you or to the organizations that you're connected with so that they can help, help in any way that they want to help, whether they're here in Florida in a different area or if they're in the northern states like CARE. And
Yeah, I'll be sharing. Thanks for all the feet on the ground effort and sharing with
yeah.
us, because we've got friends and family down there. I mean, everybody up here is connected. It
Well, it's
seems
funny
like.
'cause
So
we have a saying that if you're not from Florida, you're from Michigan.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah, that's true. And like obviously like 90% of the time living down here, you live on vacation, right? And there's sunshine and palm trees and it's very enjoyable. But like we did make a choice. I made a choice to move to Florida. I know you were born and raised, Lisa. And this comes along with it, right? The hurricane season comes along with it.
Mhm.
And but at the same time, like, devastation's devastations, tragedy is tragedy, weather happens. And coming together and being good humans and helping other people out. I'm thinking the holidays are coming up. Halloween's about to hit. You got Thanksgiving and Christmas and the New Year. I mean, there's it's a really good time that if you feel inspired by the story to, find an organization that's trying to help people, where you can help, donate time, donate anything. But like right now, like you said, we've got a ways to go and we still need
Yeah,
help and we
it's not
still
over.
need
I mean,
supplies. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what's kind of worrying me. Like I said, is our donations have slowed down like 90%. So
Yeah.
it's um
Any little bit can help.
yeah, anything. I mean,
Yeah.
really anything. Yeah, absolutely. So I
Yeah.
mean, if you can give anything, or I mean, some people actually, this is nice actually. Some people are still taking their vacations here, but they're signing up for charities. They're signing up for volunteer work, because they're like, we're going to be down there anyway. Uh,
Right.
that that is the type of tourism I think we really, really need right now.
Yeah.
If you do have a scheduled vacation, and if your Airbnb isn't underwater or destroyed, and I'm not saying, hey, go spend your vacation volunteering, but if you could just take a little bit of time out and find out where you can help, it
Hmm.
makes so much of it. Because think about, if everybody did that, if everybody who was vacationing down here just donated an hour of their time in their vacation, how many people we would have helping.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's a really good point. Thank you for coming on. I know that it's your Saturday, and thank you, Carrie, for jumping on real quick and being on the fly. And
Thank you.
I'll put all the important links in the show notes, and we'll be sure to share it and get the word out so that, more people understand what's going on. And like I said, the holidays are upon us, and that's a perfect time, end of the year, end of the year and holidays is the perfect time that if you're ever inspired to donate your time or energy or money or or whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
Now is the time, especially coming off of this big of a situation. I just can't even believe that, yeah, survivor's guilt is real. And
And then you feel bad for crying. Like, what right do I have to cry? And then you're like, yeah.
so helping helps, right? It helps make you feel better. Okay. Thank you so much. Hold on one second.
Thank you.